Okay, I'm going to dive in. As I said, it's been really hectic, but I love seeing you, being with you, sharing with you. So I put in exceptional effort on the side to continue with this presentation and to do it. And I think it ties in really well with the fact that we're at this, if you like, inflection point in our journey, and value creation and strategy are essential for that point in the journey. And hopefully, you will see as we discuss it, it may not be as evolved as I like it to be because my time was limited, but I think the message is very clear. So focus with me. It is, you can look at it as a presentation for top executive, but as always, I look at everything I do is for all of us, at all level of the organization. Try and see it. Some will see it from a division, from a company, etc. But you can also see it from a personal standpoint, and there is a lot to be learned there. So, value creation is all to do with strategy, and we have done discussion of strategy in the past. Just to put it in a nutshell, in case you forgot, strategy is all about this is a castle, this is called a moat, and in the olden days, that was one way to protect the castle. So in this case, let's say Alpha or Alpha's business is the castle, and the moat is to protect us from competition, from Me Too, etc. And they used to put crocodiles, I don't know if that really happened, in the moat so nobody can think to swim across. So we have to look at our story. What is our moat? Obviously, it's not a castle and there is no water, but the reality is we have been competing and winning for 40 years. So we do have some modes, although maybe not articulated very clearly. Hopefully, when you see the presentation, you will maybe see it in a much, much simpler way than the sophisticated Harvard sort of strategy courses that they do. Okay, so according to the Harvard strategy gurus and so on, strategy is a sustainable competitive advantage. So it's not good enough to do a competitive advantage. You have to be able to sustain it year after year. And how you would sustain it is by preserving what is distinctive about the company. If you can preserve that, you will continue to win. You will continue to have an edge, an advantage against the others. So that is the formal definition. But I want to come to it from a totally different angle, which is much, much easier to interpret mentally, to create within the organization, and to create as an individual. So look at it. If you think, well, what strategy to do with me? I am and just doing that job, then think from a personal point of view, could that be your strategy to grow and flourish in life? So there is another angle, it's not just a company angle. So let's see if there can be a new way to craft strategy, and you need to focus with me just for the next couple of slides, then you can relax if you wish. But something we will call the value scale. And it sounds like maybe something fancy, but it's very straightforward if you focus with me. A customer or a boss has a willingness to pay beyond which they will walk away. So if your customer is willing to pay 100 and you want to charge 110, you are above their willingness to pay. If you are below 100, then you are within that. That doesn't say necessarily they will give you the business, but you are within their bound of what they're willing to pay. That's at the top of the scale here. Here, willing to sell. Who's selling? I'm a company and you are, let's say, working in the company. You dictate what you're willing to sell your time, your effort, your talent to the company, right? So your willingness to sell puts the cost of running that business there. Who else is involved? Our vendors, our suppliers. Their willingness to sell at a certain price dictates what is that price. And the difference between the willingness to pay and the willingness to sell is what? Giant, what's the difference between the willingness to pay and willingness to sell?
Good morning, everybody. Basically, you are actually.
No theory, just answer. Because the time is limited, I just want, if you say I don't know, we'll go to the next person. But then no explanation, just give me yes, no, this, that.
We are compatible and we are able to match at certain points and move ahead.
Okay. Really, if you were a grocer, if you are even got a little stand in the market, that difference is, this is your cost as a human being running that stand. That's what the customer willing to pay. And obviously here involves the goods that you have on the stand. The difference is the money you make. The difference is the money you make. Willingness, the customer, if they're willing to pay you this, and your willingness to sell, whether your time or the vendors who put goods on your stands, that's the willingness to sell. That's the minimum they'll accept for their contribution. The difference is some value, right? So let's see how we can then work with this scale. What happens if you're really smart and able to push the willingness to pay of your customers, right? So let's stay with the stand in the vegetable market. That's simple enough. If you polish all your apples and your tomatoes and you spray some water on your greeneries, etc., and your stand looks amazingly appetizing, your customer willingness to pay will rise a little bit, right? Otherwise, if your mint and your parsley and your tomatoes and your apples look tired, they look dusty, look dirty, that willingness to pay comes down, correct? The cost here is your time as a vendor and the cost of the vegetables you got on the stand. If you can negotiate better here and you push this up, you're doing a good job. That's really, I can't put it any simpler as a strategy. So this can be applied by a grocer shop. It can be applied by General Motors. So strategy, let's see if we can understand it. You want to create value for a number of people, your customers above all, your staff, the employees, the vendors who supply you, and the shareholders who own the company. If you can create value for these people, you're doing good. And guess what? For 40 years, we've been doing exactly that. We're about to articulate what maybe isn't articulated often, but we have been satisfying the customers. That's why they keep buying from you. Hopefully you're happy as the staff. You are free people. You would walk away quite easily. The vendors seems to favor you most of the time, maybe not all the time, but let's say majority of the time. And I can assure you, the shareholders are happy. And so is the market today. As we go to public market, we see a lot of traction, people happy with the story. We have never really talked too much about really the net profit. It shows up in our financials, but net profit, like everything in life, is the result of all of these things. It is, if you go after net profit from day one, usually you fail because you're trying to squeeze money right, left, and center. It doesn't work. If you do this value creation, profit seems to come naturally. And we have really not pushed it. There's never been a target we should make X profit this year, otherwise we will die. And I'm talking about net profit, not gross profit. So we have two elements. Let them imprint in your mind. A willingness to pay the most a customer would pay for a product or a service. Willingness to sell, the least amount of compensation an employee would accept if it is staff. If it's a vendor, the least they would accept. Let's say it's a Cisco. The least they would accept with Alpha is X. If a small, unreliable partner goes to them, the least they would accept could be different. Okay? So we have two variables. That's all you have to think about if you want to think strategy. Don't complicate it. These are the two key things. If they imprint in your mind, you can develop a very, very powerful strategy. So that is, let's look at it as the value scale. That between this and this is the value that has been created. That doesn't necessarily mean it is the money you will take home. It doesn't mean to say it's your net profit, but you created that value. It's very important to remember. Some of it you can bank. Some of it translate differently. Okay, so we said what the WTS and WP. WP, WTS, remember those. Okay, and the value is the difference between them. And anybody so far has any question? I hope it is simple enough that any of us can get it, because I want you to apply it to your job in a second. So we're coming to that. So look at this. So that's the price the customer pay, and that's the compensation that the company pays. That difference is the profit the company makes. So what is this bit here? Or what's this bit here? You're smiling, Giant. Are you trying to say something?
Yeah, it's the value that we create that sustains us and grows us in the future.
Right. So we get into a situation, look at what it is called. Above and below, the customer, let's say you're willing to pay 20 dirham for a cup of coffee because you're desperate for your hit of caffeine. And you come across Starbucks or whoever is your favorite, and it's 10 dirhams. You were willing to pay 20, it's 10. The 10 dirham saving translate to client or customer delight. Same thing, somebody who is willing to pay X for some of your solutions, and they can get the same price from Alpha as they would get from a small time player, not too reliable. The difference is their delight. When I buy from Amazon, I will pay the same price as maybe buying it from a shop or any outlet. Look at why it's delightful to buy from Amazon. First, I do it with few clicks from home. The other one, I have to drive, go into the mall, park my car, all the hassle. Also, what happens if I change my mind? I took 3 clicks and they come to my door and pick it up. The price is the same. However, the extra value Amazon created is a delight. That's why they keep winning. Same, let's look at your willingness to sell. Let's say you are willing, if you want to join a respectable organization, job security, I don't know, prestige, whatever you want to call it, you would be happy with salary or package X. And from both, maybe you have 2 possible people to hire you. One of them is Apple. The other one is Joe Block down the street. The prestige of working for Apple translate to, especially when the salaries are the same, and yet I'm at Apple. Okay, although Apple will for sure pay more, but often that's not the reason. The reason is I am satisfied. I've joined now with a prestigious company. I have job security. I have continuity. I have a culture. And that's what also attract people to join us. Often people, even who left us, come back because they appreciate that kind of thing. So let's look at your value scale now, not as a company, as a person. So There is a willingness to pay. Whose willingness to pay is this? Uh, Sridhar, who is willing to pay you? I know we don't like to pay you, but who's willing to pay?
Company willingness to recognize.
Exactly. That's the company willingness. And willingness to sell, what's that? Ruben, I can only ask people on the screen. Let me see. I have Ishan.
Jan.
Yes.
Hello.
Useful
Assalamualaikum.
the idea maybe. Well, who is
Maybe skills and efforts of the employee. The employee is willing to sell his skills and efforts and time.
absolutely? It is your willingness to sell it at that price. Okay. So the value is to you as a human being. Okay. Is that difference willingness to pay minus willingness to sell, and we end up with the difference is what you take home. Now, you don't only take home money, you take home also fulfillment, job satisfaction, pride in what you do, prestige in your community, friendship, etc., depending where you work. Sometimes that's not necessarily the case. Okay. Are we clear so far? This is really essential because you can take these few nuggets, if you like, and integrate them in everything you do. So the customer's willingness to pay. Now, let's put some caution. How not to do it? If you're trying to increase the customer willingness to pay. Now, you're this salesperson, you're working at Alpha, okay? And you go to a customer and you think, I want to squeeze more out of this customer as a willingness to pay, right? Let's see how you could do it. Take advantage of shortages. We said how not to do. What happens if there is a very, like during COVID, shortages of things, and you start saying, why should I sell my PC at X? I can add 10, 20%. They have nowhere else to go. They have to buy from me. What about if I am the only provider of that product, which was the case of the UAE during exclusivity? You know, we had agency law where you could only buy Sony from Jumbo, let's say, or HP from Emitak. You then take advantage of that exclusivity, and what happens to the customer? Are they happy? They know that you're taking them for a royal ride, but they have nowhere else to go. Okay? What about seasonality? You decide, oh, demand is higher in this part of the year, I jack up the price. There's demand, there's shortages. What about you think, oh, this client can afford to pay more? He's not too sort of careful. I can stick him with a higher ticket price and they will never even notice. They have plenty of money. This often happens even with small transaction. If they trust you, if they're ignorant what's going on, if there's a crisis, then you can take advantage of it. All of these things, what happens? Have you increased their willingness to pay? You have forced it. You didn't increase it. Value doesn't come from twisting their arms behind their back. Value comes from you creating value and the willingness to pay happily for the customer. And I know you guys are doing it. You may not realize when, let's see, whoever, let me take a salesman in front of me. Suhaib, you're in the middle of my screen. So your customers' willingness to pay, they keep coming to him and they're willing to pay either higher or at least equal, but with a smile on their face. Why is that? Why do you think, Suhaib?
Well, they think that the price is good at the value and the services or the product they are, getting. For that, what they are paying is worth it.
Exactly. They have considered the situation, the various suppliers, and they thought the highest value I get, logistics, speed of delivery, sound advice, honest dealing, etc., I am delighted that I pay same as I would pay somewhere else. So here doesn't charge me, high premium for his product, but I get the value. I am happy to pay it. That's the customer delight. So let's go to value creation, and you want to see how you can raise the willingness to pay properly of a customer. Improve your fulfillment. This could be speed of delivery, as be keeping customer updated about progress of their shipment, of the products coming, when we will install, etc. Complement, this is any complementary service that you can provide that makes it a really interesting offering. So let's take an example. Let's say somebody like ADNOC FOD. You don't have ADNOC. You have some stations starting to pop up in Dubai and definitely in the Northern Emirates. Look at what they do. They put this chip in the petrol tank, or just as near where you put the nozzle. That is a compliment. I didn't have to pay for that. It made my life easy. So wherever I travel, I look for an ADNOC petrol station, right? Why would I want to bring out cash and ask him to bring a card? I don't know if you have that in Dubai, I don't know, Emirat or whatever your petrol stations are. Maybe some of them are doing it. You need to find what complements would help that. For instance, in our business, what if you were to say, look, if you buy this network, I would give you access to our NOC for a year. That's a compliment. He didn't have to pay for it, but you have given them a way to monitor their network and its efficiency for a year. So you complementing the offering with something. In every business, there are chances and possibilities to do complements. Network effect. Again, if you think Tesla, one of their strengths is there are Tesla charging stations throughout. I don't know if there are in Dubai, but there are many places. If you don't have it, what use is Tesla? It becomes hardly much use to you. This also applies to, we'll come to it later, to even social network. Their power comes from that network that they're on. If you remember some of you will remember, I think many may not, the fax machine. The first fax machine that was installed, nobody wants to use. What am I going to fax myself? But when the faxes were all over the world, the network is so powerful that I can fax anywhere to anywhere, and I'm a happy user. Then other technology came along. So we raised willingness to pay. We want to reduce the willingness to sell of who? Of our vendors and staff. Doesn't mean to say reduce salary. Be careful. Reduce willingness to sell, because that translates also to satisfaction. That's what's important. Not how much you manage to squeeze people down or how much you squeeze the vendor down. That's not very clever. You need to have people on your side. They're rooting for you. They're happy to transact with you. So if you have a healthy culture where people are really happy to come to work, to be at work, to deal with each other, you have no politics, you seem to be transparent, you seem to be honest, and you fulfill your promises, that makes people much more comfortable, and you created a willingness to sell at a reduced price. I repeat, you reduced the willingness, but you did not reduce the salary. You just increased the delight of doing that transaction. Improve it in the office. If you're sitting in a dingy office with things falling out, AC not working, etc., doesn't help with reducing the willingness to sell. If the job satisfying and meaningful. All of these things make you feel, even if it was at 10% less salary, I would continue to work for this organization. Obviously, they're smart. They're not going to give you less 10%, but it will translate to job satisfaction. So let's see on the employee side how not to do it. Some of you may have heard me tell you that. Some of you deduced it yourself. But before I jump into it, I want to encourage one or two tutors how not, okay, to sort of increase your demand. I'll give you an example, then I'll let you run with it. How not to do it. Some people have come to me to say, look, now I have a master degree in this. Can we review my salary? What do you think to that? I have got a master degree or a doctorate or whatever, and I want, because that's really, took me 3-4 years to get that, and now I expect a review. Let me ask, what do you think, Laith? If somebody walks into your office and say, hey, congratulations to all of us, I have got a master degree. Notice I chose Laith because he's very generous. Go ahead, Laith.
Well, actually, Faiz, first of all, it happened actually with us, frankly, to be frank with you. But the way we look at it, what that, for example, bachelor degree or whatever degree he's getting is benefiting us here in the company, and what it will add us as a value. And based on that, if it really add a value, yes, we will take it into consideration based on that, and we will give him an offer that could match his expectation.
Like I already said, it's irrelevant. He got it in horticultural. He got it in, I don't know, farming. And we are a technology company. Don't come to me with a degree just because you got something, even in related field, but it's irrelevant for me. Let's go next. Somebody comes to you, I've got an offer, and they're willing to pay me 30% more. Now, it doesn't mean to say it's not a fair statement, but where is the added value here? How do you add value by waving around an offer from a third party? That is, I'm just showing you ways, that's not how you add value. Some people just forget themselves and they think they can play these games. And sometimes you desperately need the person, and you might even respond to that, but did it add value or did it leave a sour taste in your mouth? And think, okay, when the time comes, I may not be so considerate because you played that game. Comparing yourself with a colleague. How come they come get this, I don't get that? Where is the added value? Always think, if I say this, if I go on that path, where is the added value? To the employer. If you find the most difficult time where the company has a project, deadline, etc., and say goodbye, or you give me X. No added value, you're just arm twisting, and it will backfire one day. Shortages, difficult times, all similar. Or if you come, this may seem mean, but it is very good for you to remember. I've had people say, you know, sir, now I used to have one or two children, now I have 6. I need higher salary. And you have my sympathy, understanding, but you're not telling me about how are the 6 children adding value to your job function. If you are clever, you will say, I'm going to be doing this, 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 to help the organization, to add value. I desperately need it. That's why I've become created. It's a different approach. But just because you got a bigger family, there's no added value that you're putting on the table there. So always think value, not profit as a company, value, not income as a person. If you think that, you will always think, how do I talk to these people about the added value to get the benefit? Okay. Always remember that short-term profit harms long-term success. And some of us just want to do transaction by transaction. You know, airlines, if you book your ticket, buy iPhone instead of Android, you pay higher price. They got at the algorithm. They said this is a richer clients, maybe. They'd add up a bit here, we can benefit. If you look at Apple, by contrast, they create a premium in the product and the service and the ease of use, and then they appear to be a prestigious company to do business with, to partner with, to work for. That's added value. Anytime you create value, you get sustainable financials, whether you're an individual or a company. Just quickly, many of you know the tires Michelin, right? Have you ever asked yourself, why does Michelin have this book that has maps and tell you which are the best restaurant that are Michelin rated? Has anybody looked into this? Is curious. What is Michelin to do with the restaurants and location of restaurant? And just a story, I'll tell you quickly. Unfortunately, I've run out of time, but bear with me just a few minutes. Michelin, when they started, there wasn't many drivers. And without people driving distances, what do they need Michelin tires for? So they started to encourage people to go to the best restaurants and make maps so people will drive more. So they were, I feel like it's a kind of compliment. That booklet of Michelin and their guidance and their advice complements their business of selling tires. They're not really benefiting from recommending a restaurant. Network effects. Can you imagine? I had somebody actually trying to sell me another network service. Forget their name now. You called it U something. And what use is it? Without the network effect, no matter how clever is your platform, it will never compete with WhatsApp. WhatsApp has everybody on it. Why would I try something else, even if that something else is a clever platform? Network is very, very powerful. And you have to think in your strategy, how do I enhance? And I've got actually, even as a staff member, the clever is to apply for the job. And you all have that experience. Say, you know what? I come with X number of clients that are loyal to me. That's his network. And you think, oh, if they come on board with this big network of potential clients, it's a good find. So network always helps. So the more you simplify that strategy, I don't think I can think of anything simpler than willingness to pay, willingness to sell. Then you will keep a competitive edge. Okay. Use it as a filter so that you always think, if that's my strategy, everything else is not very relevant. I'll just leave it out. I don't want to be distracted. Okay. Does it increase WTP? Does it reduce WS? Always, if you're going to do something, focus on something that is meaningful, high impact. Don't get distracted with clever tricks. In conclusion, think value, not income. Leave income, it will come. But create value, you're guaranteed. What truly matters should be your focus. The rest is noise. And clarity of exactly what you're trying to do, which is creating value, equals long-term success. I hope this, or some of it, sticks. I hope to see you applying it as soon as possible in everything you do. In fact, I am applying it even in talking to investors these days. They will say, well, what's your strategy? And when we say to them, we protect our bottom line, they don't realize the value we bring. And I can elaborate on this only on these two parameters. It's very simple if they get it. And I think a lot of them get it, which gives me a problem, to be honest. They always start talking about our succession risk, and they think it's really clever. It's nothing clever. Anybody can be doing this. Okay, hopefully it was useful. Please rate and leave us comment.